Hey everyone. From the moment Calvin Broadus Jr. stepped onto the streets of Long Beach as a skinny teenager with a voice smooth enough to hypnotize an entire generation, the world believed Snoop Dogg's life was all weed smoke, lowriders, platinum records, and effortless swagger. But behind that laid-back smile and the cool persona of hip-hop's most recognizable icon lies a story far more tragic, far more complicated, and far more heartbreaking than most people ever imagined. Because Snoop's rise to superstardom was born out of an environment filled with danger, poverty, fractured family relationships, and constant survival instincts that followed him long after the world turned him into a legend. Long before the fame, he was a choir-singing kid moving between homes, dealing with a father who left early, and a mother struggling to raise him while working multiple jobs. And even as he found solace in music, the streets pulled him into a cycle of arrests, gang ties, and violence that shaped his worldview forever. And when Dr. Dre discovered him, it wasn't just the beginning of a career, it was Snoop escaping a life that had already consumed so many of his friends, a life he would spend decades trying to outrun. But the darker side of fame hit fast, with the world watching his murder trial unfold at only 22 years old, a moment that nearly ended his career and freedom before it truly began, leaving behind a lifetime of trauma, suspicion, and paranoia that no amount of platinum success could erase. And even when he was acquitted, Snoop knew that eyes, both from the industry and the streets, were always on him, waiting for him to fail, while he was trying to navigate a business that benefited from his image but offered little protection for the emotional weight he carried. As the 90s exploded with death, he watched close friends like Tupac and later Nipsey Hussle fall to violence, each loss reopening wounds he never healed. And though he played the role of a cultural giant, a family man, a businessman, and even a comedic icon, the quiet truth was that Snoop was constantly trying to balance the expectations of millions with the reality of his own aging, trauma, and the heavy burden of being one of the last surviving legends from an era where so many never made it past 25. Throughout his life, he struggled with the guilt of friends who didn't escape the streets, the pressure of representing the West Coast through endless feuds and shifting hip-hop culture, and the pain of losing loved ones, from childhood friends to industry partners, and even inside his own home, he faced painful challenges, from marriage complications to raising children in the spotlight while dealing with the grief of watching his infant grandson pass away shortly after birth. A devastating loss that shook his entire family and reminded the world that beneath the celebrity exterior is a man who has endured heartbreak after heartbreak. And as Snoop aged, he found himself navigating an industry that celebrated him publicly but often exploited him privately, forcing him to reinvent himself repeatedly, from gangster rapper to media personality to entrepreneur, just to stay afloat in a business that discards artists once they age out of the marketable bracket. And even now, as the world sees him joking on TV, cooking with Martha Stewart, or hosting shows with his signature charm, the unseen truth is that he carries decades of trauma, survivor's guilt, industry battles, personal losses, and an emotional exhaustion that no amount of fame can cure. Yet the most heartbreaking part of Snoop's story is that despite his influence, his contributions, and the millions of people he's inspired, he often feels like he's still fighting to prove himself, to prove he's more than a stereotype, more than a character, more than the caricature the industry once tried to mold him into, because behind every laugh, every smooth line, every meme-worthy moment, lies a man who crawled out of a world many never escaped, who paid a price far heavier than most realize, who watched an entire era of friends disappear to violence, addiction, and tragedy, and who now stands as one of the last surviving voices of a generation defined by brilliance, chaos, and unimaginable loss. And while fans celebrate the legend, the truth behind the scenes is a life filled with constant rebuilding, emotional scars that never healed, and a quiet but profound sadness that the world rarely sees, making the tragedy of Snoop Dogg not about scandal or downfall, but about a man who rose higher than anyone expected while carrying more pain than anyone ever knew. A reminder that sometimes the people who make us smile the most are the ones silently fighting the hardest battles. Thanks for watching.